Philadelphia 76ers went ahead and signed Paul George to this free agency, and they truly believe that he is the missing piece for this Sixer team, because over the years we have seen tragic playoff losses and all-around flameouts from the Sixers. I mean, 2019 was probably their best chance to go to the Eastern Conference Final when Kawhi hit the dagger. Then a couple of years ago where they went ahead and flamed out in a Game 7 versus the Boston Celtics, being up 3-2. So the Sixers are hoping Paul George, a guy who can play defense, a guy who can score, a guy who actually was pretty durable last year and, didn't miss many games, can go ahead and, be the missing piece for this Sixer team. And they hope with Paul George, they're able to get over the hump that they've been trying to get over, make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I know they got some championship hopes too. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the big three: Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George. We're going to talk about the Sixers roster. We're going to talk about the Eastern Conference. Do I believe the Sixers can go ahead and go on the run? And of course, answer the ultimate question: is Paul George the missing piece of this Philadelphia 76er team? Before I get into it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe. It's very much appreciated. Comment how you guys feel about the video. All my socials are in the description, and let's get straight into it. All right, to start off the video, we got to talk about the new piece, Paul George. Last year as a Clipper, Paul George averaged 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists on 47% field goal shooting and 41% from 3. Paul George is most likely now going to be the number 2 option in this Philadelphia offense, which takes the load a little bit off of Joel Embiid, I feel like, because no, there's another guy that's been there, done a whole bunch of things, been in the league for a very long time, can score and do all these things. So the load off Embiid a little bit, and also takes a little bit of a load off of Tyrese Maxey because he was the number 2 option. Now most likely he's going to be the number 3 option when it comes to scoring in this offense. I think this is a pretty good ad for the Philadelphia 76ers. I like Paul George on this Philadelphia team, but all the issues I have with it, I'll get into a little bit later, because at one point I'm just going to talk about all the issues I have. But scoring wise, I feel like it's going to be great. Take the load off of some players. As long as he can stay healthy and be on the court, he should be good, even though he does have some questionable moments sometimes. We saw last year in the playoffs, sometimes this man tends to be the most devious playoff dropper of all time. Year after year, somehow, some way he drops off in the playoffs, which I'll just get into that a little bit later with all the problems. But then of course you got Joel Embiid, which he was averaging like 30 points a game, and he was the obvious MVP before he went ahead and suffered that injury, which made him out for like majority of the year. But he was going on an absolute tear, and that's what Joel Embiid does. He goes ahead, he dominates scoring, he gets rebounds, and he makes some absolutely insane plays. And the only really concern with Joel Embiid is, of course, like I mentioned, he had an injury last year. The only concern with Embiid is his health. If he is not healthy, this Sixer team struggles, and we really start to see that. So Embiid's gonna go ahead and do his thing. He just got to stay healthy, man. And then of course you got Tyrese Maxey, a guy who was super clutch. We saw that in the playoffs last year. This man was insanely clutch, man. This guy can go ahead and shoot, he can score, he's also can go ahead and pass. He's a great point guard, one of the most underrated players in the league in my opinion. This man can, he's just such a solid dude, and he's just gonna keep growing more and growing more. They also went ahead and gave Kelly Oubre an extension, which I think was a really smart idea. Kelly Oubre is a very good rotational player to have on your team. He can also go ahead and do a lot of things, and like, he's just a great piece. They also went ahead and gave Caleb Martin some money last year, averaged 10 points per game. He's a great shooter. I'm guessing one of the biggest reasons why they went ahead and signed him is because that 2023 playoff run, he was absolutely insane. Probably should have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He was absolutely lighting up the Celtics. But of course, last season, the regular season, he came down to earth a little bit, and I'm guessing the Sixers are banking on that he's able to go ahead and go back to that form that he once was in, or at least be somewhat of an, average somewhere between 10 to 15 points to be a nice role player. I think it's also smart they went ahead and signed Andre Drummond, because before they didn't have a true backup center to go ahead and back up Embiid. Now that they have one, I feel like that's a pretty smart move and a pretty great one they made in free agency. They also got some other guys like KJ Martin, Robert Covington, Cameron Payne, just some basic guys. And they also went ahead and drafted Jared McCain in this year's draft out of Duke. Everyone pretty much knows him for all the TikTok dances he does. I can't be too mad at him because he did go ahead and average 14 points from 41% from 3 last year in college. So he probably could go ahead and be a nice rotational player eventually. But yeah, those are pretty much all the moves that the Sixers went ahead and made in the offseason. Those are pretty much what the roster is looking like currently. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about the Eastern Conference. Do I think this team is good enough to go ahead and go on a run? The Eastern Conference is a very interesting, conference, because, in the West, all the talent is pretty much spread out on like 10 teams right now. I mean, every team got some talent. Every team is pretty much a team you don't want to go ahead and mess with. There's a ton of contenders in the West. And what I'm saying is the Eastern Conference is different. All that talent is like spread out against like 4 teams. Like, it's not spread out like the West, but it's just like on 4 teams. All the talent is there. So of course the Sixers are gonna have to go through teams like the Boston Celtics, the defending champs. They would have to go ahead and go through them. There's teams like Milwaukee, which they're trying to go ahead and figure out themselves, get their lives together. Hopefully Giannis and Dame can stay healthy and they can be a contending team. You got a team like the Miami Heat. For some reason, some way, they make no moves in free agency, but you already know they're still gonna find some way to make the playoffs like they usually do. I mean, the Indiana Pacers, we just saw them. They just recently went on a run. They're still gonna be a good team. They're gonna be back next year. The New York Knicks, they got better. They went ahead and got Mikal Bridges. The Eastern Conference is not a conference you want to mess around with. It's not like the West where all the talent is spread out, but there's still some very solid teams in it. And I feel like adding Paul George is definitely going to go ahead and help them contend against some of these tough teams, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to go ahead and push them to a championship. And that's the reasons why I'm going to talk about right now is all like the things that it's going against Philadelphia with this Paul George signing and like everything that's happened in the past. So of course we all should know, I said earlier in the video, Paul George is what, the devious playoff dropper of all time. It's probably too harsh to say all time, but Paul George is definitely a playoff dropper. Sometimes he will literally like drop 40 points like we saw in that game 5 of the Western Conference Finals in 2021. He'll ball out, or he'll play like he did in the bubble, because that wasn't beautiful. He'd be hitting stuff off the backboard. He's such like a confusing and up and down player in the playoff time. In order for the Sixers to not choke in the playoffs, they gotta go ahead and be on point. I mean, one of the biggest reasons why I think the Clippers lost to the Mavericks last year was of course Kawhi being out, but also Paul George was very inconsistent in some of those games. You know, one game he'd drop like 30 and then the next he'd be inconsistent and drop like 12. I think another thing that's going against the Sixer team is Embiid's health, man. Every single year in the playoffs, this man finds some way to get hurt. It doesn't matter what it is, somehow, some way. For the past couple of years, he's just been injured, and it really sucks because, you know, Joel Embiid is such a nice player. You know, he's one of the best in the league right now. If he were to stay healthy, the league would be in trouble, but he just can't stay healthy, and when he is healthy, he puts up stinkers in game 7. But I will say that if the Sixers do get one fully here, healthy on a run, like if this is the year for them that they're finally healthy and they go on a run, they have a chance to go ahead and go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, they got some great pieces around them. I wouldn't be surprised if they went ahead and did. I honestly like this Philadelphia core a lot, to be honest with you guys. I like a lot of the signings that they made. It's just going to be tough. They got a lot of things going against them. A lot of people don't see the Sixer team doing anything because, you know, Embiid, Paul George, notorious people for not doing anything in the playoffs. I think in the clutch in the playoffs, I think Tyrese Maxey's really going to have to go ahead and step it up and do what he did last year, because Paul George and Embiid in the clutch in the playoffs aren't the best players in the world. But y'all know what I'm saying. I genuinely think Paul George could be the missing piece to this Philadelphia Sixer team. It just all depends on how the season shakes out, and it depends how all the negative things that I have to say about this team, how they go ahead and shake out. If Paul George and Embiid are able to stay healthy, man, hey, anything can go ahead and happen, and Paul George could look like the missing piece that goes ahead and glues everything together. But genuinely, I think the ceiling of this team is definitely going to be the Eastern Conference Finals. I just can't see the Sixers making the finals. I don't know what it is. I just genuinely can't see it, but I think the ceiling is definitely Eastern Conference Finals for sure. It truly depends how everything shakes out. Let me know what you guys feel about the Sixers in the comments, though, because like I said, I just can't see them making the finals for some reason, man. I don't know what it is. We're gonna have to go ahead and see what Nick Nurse's plan is, man. How is he gonna coach everyone? How is he gonna make sure everyone stays healthy? I'm really interested to see what he go ahead and does. What's Paul George gonna average? Is Embiid gonna average 30 points a game like he did last year? This is definitely gonna be a team to watch next year. I'm very excited to see them play basketball. I want to see what they do. Let me know how you guys feel about them in the comments, because me personally, I'm very interested to see what this Philadelphia team does. But let me know if you guys enjoyed the video in the comments. Please drop a like and subscribe. It's very much appreciated, and I will see you guys in the next video coming out very shortly.